same clothes. This is right after our running back episode, but
Well, whichever one of these gets posted first. We don't even know which one's getting posted.
yeah, running backs first.
We're stocking up on the weekends. We've had some issues recording during the weekdays because of school. So
yeah, we've just had too much going on. But
yeah.
Today we're going to be talking about, we each have, I don't want to say a list, but a couple guys that we are pretty high on, or just guys that we think are in a good position to succeed on their teams. So if you want to go first, Peyton, it's fine.
All right. These are like supposed to be kind of hot takes. At least mine are.
Subtly hot takes, but yes.
I said that by the end of the season, Jimmy Garoppolo will be elite.
Elite.
Now, this is a hot take for a couple of reasons. Not only because right now he's not considered elite, clearly, but I don't think he deserves that type. I feel like every game he had to throw the ball, he honestly threw it pretty well. We don't talk about him in the same way we do if that pass interference call gets called on the Chiefs on George Kittle. Like, that was a great thrown ball. He just got held.
Yeah.
If they win that Super Bowl, we talk about him as elite. The only reason he doesn't get the respect he deserves, I would say, I mean, he's won everywhere he goes, he wins. He's a quarterback that wins, first of all. Anything that you need him to do, he does to get his team to win. They've obviously got a pretty good group of young receivers with San Francisco, but one thing I want to talk about is just he's one of the few quarterbacks in the NFL, I think, that he doesn't really let, the sort of ego take over. And what I mean by that is he's okay winning a game if the team runs the ball 50 times and he only throws the ball. Like, he only threw the ball one game in the playoffs last year 8 times. Like, he's okay winning a football game, like, if he's throwing the ball 8 times. Whereas,
he's not a stat patter.
Even it's not even stat patter. It's just some coaches. He's a guy that will do anything for the team to win. I would say even Drew Brees, if you told him to go out there and run the ball 80 straight times, like the 49ers do for Jimmy Garoppolo, he's going to change the play and throw it. Like, I'm not saying Drew Brees doesn't want to win, but he also wants to throw the ball. He wants to have an impact on the game. He's obviously one of the – it's weird because not many other teams run this offense that the 49ers do, but just his ability to sit back and either take over a game or just the way he plays is just incredible to me. And especially in the Superdome last year against the Saints.
That was a great game.
That game, the Saints' rush defense is incredible. So they switched the pass and they won the game. They don't win that game if they have a quarterback other than Jim. Like, Jimmy Garoppolo played great that day. It's just when the 49ers ever ask him to step up, he steps up. I just think the one flaw, he can't control the Super Bowl last year at the end of the game when they decided to run the ball that often.
Yeah, well, my biggest complaint about Jimmy Garoppolo is that I watched him a decent amount. I watched the 49ers play a lot, and at the end of games, he doesn't have a button to switch on.
Really?
Not at all. I mean, that Saints game, yes, he played well, but no, he didn't carry his team there. Like, they wouldn't have even had that field goal if George Kittle hadn't shrugged off 3 guys.
The game I look at, they might have been playing the Browns, but this was before he tore his ACL. It was his second or third game with 49ers, and he had thrown like 3 or 4 picks. Like, he was awful the whole game, and he had never lost a game before. And it went down to the 4th quarter, and he had like 2 incredible drives to win the game. I think he does have that switch. I just think last year Mike Shanahan didn't let him use it.
Well, I mean, both times
they were up in games. What games were they down in?
Both times they played the Seahawks. At the end of the game, when the last 2 minutes, last 3 minutes, he wasn't making good throws. I mean, they were okay. It wasn't anything special. He was just kind of a system guy at that point. Like, he was just doing, like, he wasn't making any plays. Like, Russell Wilson is so good because he's so good at improvising and turning it on in the big moments. And, I mean, Jimmy is a good quarterback, and he does what he's asked to do pretty damn well, I would say. I do think he doesn't get enough respect, but I don't want to categorize him as elite until he can show that he has that X factor at the end of the game.
Well, that's what I said by the end of the season. I don't think he's elite now, but I do think he has that switch. no quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion, can access that switch when they've thrown a ball only 15 times before the fourth quarter. I think there's a
I
rhythm.
somewhat agree that.
I think there's a rhythm that you've got to get into as a passer, whether that's timing with your receivers. It's hard for him to look at kind of the defenses like, I mean, it's hard to evaluate a defense when you're throwing the ball and you've only thrown it 15 times in a game, like before the fourth quarter. So they also were in a lot of games where they can just run the ball. They were up a lot last year.
They did have that committee going pretty well.
I don't think that he got an opportunity necessarily to show that he was elite. And I feel like this year he might have more of an opportunity as the 49ers have a really tough schedule. They might get down in some games and he might be able to take over a couple. The only, I would say game that was incredibly high volume scoring that I can remember from last year was, really just that Saints game. And I do think that he's a good passer. It's just tough to get in a rhythm when you don't pass as often as basically every other quarterback in the league.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think he's fine. He's not a crazily amazing quarterback, and I don't know. I feel like I watched a lot of Niners games last year, and I also feel like I saw a lot of the defense and the coaching kind of being what wins them games, not Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, and that's a fair assumption, but coaching obviously is great, but Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't have to win them games. They're going to win games with defense. I'm just saying he finds ways to win, and if they need to call on him this year, I think he'll step up to the plate. I think he'll win them the close games.
All right. Well, moving on to my guy. If you got Jimmy, I got my boy Kyler Murray.
Yeah, same division.
Absolutely, my favorite. Not my favorite player, but my favorite player is not on the Saints or the Titans. Not on the Saints or the Titans.
I think this year he's a top 3 favorite player for you.
Thanks for making that assumption in my brain for yourself. Thanks.
I think, dude, you talk about him every day.
Well, that's because I have his cards, so I've invested real money into him.
I think Drew Brees and Kyler. Drew Brees, you obviously like more, just because he's your guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think Kyler is behind Drew Brees.
I like Kyler. Thanks for making that power ranking in my head. Dude, I like Kyler a lot. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks, but I would say I like both. I'd rather the Titans and the Saints win with their quarterbacks than Kyler Murray. But
yeah, of course. I'm not saying you like the Cardinals more than those other teams.
Kind of mid. It's fine. But Kyler, my hot take, as you said, you think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be elite. I think Kyler Murray is going to finish top 4 in MVP voting and be somewhat considered elite by the end of this season. Everything everything's going great for him right now. I think with Cliff Kingsbury's air raid offense going on, he's got D-Hop. I think Christian Kirk is a really good second guy to have, especially when, D-Hop's going to be getting the double coverage. The defense has definitely improved. People forget about how good Chandler Jones is. They've got Patrick Peterson, Byron Murphy. Yes, I have said their O-line is not good, but neither is the Seahawks O-line, and we've seen Russell Wilson run around in that backfield for the past 10 years. So, not 10 years, 8 years. Still, I think Kyler is going to make a case for he can be one of the top 10 guys in the league for the next 10 years.
All right, well, I've got some comments and then a question. So, this upcoming season, the thing I want to see the most from Kyler Murray is just touchdown plays. He's honestly, I think a lot of those plays are going to come from using his legs. Yeah. I think he's a really good runner. Whenever I saw him run games in the red zone, he was a lot more likely to get some of those touchdowns. But the one thing I'll say about the Cliff Kingsbury offense is I don't like it in the red zone. I actually think it's pretty bad in the red zone. It's so hard to throw the ball when you've got such a short field. So I think this year, Kyler's either going to have to use his legs more in the red zone, because I felt like last year he was honestly even a little timid at first.
He was a rookie.
Year, he did start to run the ball a little bit better, I think. So the one improvement I want to see from him, and honestly his coach as well, is just kind of some more creative play design in the red zone, trying to get guys open a little bit more across the middle of the field, whether that's running a running back down low and then a receiver a little bit further up. That was the one complaint I had with him last year was that he couldn't finish drives. It felt like more than half of them ended in field goals.
Yeah,
And
I
then
agree with that. I do think that's a good
the
point.
question I have is, in such a good division, do you think that they'll make the playoffs or even win the division?
I was a little bullish at one point. I think that I think they have a shot to make the playoffs. I think compared to the Niners, who just went to a Super Bowl,
I
I
mean, even
think that the
Seahawks.
Seahawks and the Niners are better, but I think that the Niners and the Cardinals are pretty marginally close. I mean, obviously the Niners defense is better. I think the coach for the Niners is better, but at the same time, we haven't seen these Cardinals with these weapons like Kenyon Drake and D Hop with Kyler. I think that's gonna be one of the best trios in the league. Um, I don't think that they're gonna win the division. I think the Seahawks are gonna win the division because I think Russell Wilson's probably gonna win MVP. I think they can maybe make the wild card. I definitely think they're better than the Rams. Uh,
Yeah. Even the Rams, though, they might steal a couple games. I
I
don't
mean, I
hate
kind
the
of see
Rams.
Jared Goff and Jimmy Garoppolo in the same tier level as quarterbacks,
Really.
which you could say is a hot take. But if that tells you anything, I also think that their defense is good but not great. Like they have two great players. They have two players that are probably the best at their position in the league. But then they don't really have much else for the Rams. I mean, not the Niners. But
Yeah, that's fair.
I think the Cardinals can get a wild card spot depending on what happens between this week. One matchup is really big for them because if they can beat the Niners, they've got a leg up on them for the wild card spot.
Yeah, we'll see if the Niners have that sort of Super Bowl hangover.
Yeah, that's true.
Um, but I guess we'll move on to the next hot take. I'm looking at it, and I don't even know if this is a hot take. I just wanted to say that I think the Steelers are going to have the best defense in the league next year, with T.J. Watt and Minka Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, that's not
They
a
have
big
no
hot
holes on
take.
defense. Like, just every piece of their defense to me is.
Yeah, Devin Bush is also
I mean,
slept on. He's a good
they've
player.
got a ton of great Bud Dupree, even a ton of great young linebackers. They've obviously got a good D line, and I mean Minka was incredible last year for the Steelers, and he didn't even play the whole year for them. So
Who do
I'd
they
say
have at second hat corner?
second corner they've I don't know, I didn't get to look at their roster, but I know they have Joe Hayden. Um,
Joe
I
Hayden's
can't
good. Yeah,
I can't remember the
he's
other
not bad.
corner. But and I don't want to type it because my keyboard's super loud and you're gonna be able to hear it. So,
I like it.
but yeah, I'd say that. And I mean, honestly, they could have a shot at winning that. You know, I'll make this some more of a hot take. They're gonna win the division, this upcoming year.
They can.
They can, but I mean, you look at the Ravens. I mean, I don't think the Ravens downgraded at all from last year.
I don't know any of these cornerbacks. Joe Hayden, Artie Burns, Mike Hilton,
Hey,
Justin
just because you don't
Lane.
know them doesn't mean they're good.
I know. I'm not. I didn't mean that sounded kind of bad. I don't know them, but they could be good.
Yeah,
Steven Nelson, Cam Sutton. It doesn't have Minka. I think Minka's a safety.
he's a free safety.
Yeah. Okay. You had me a little confused when you said second corner, but yeah, I agree with that. I think the Ravens are their biggest competitor, and I do think the Browns
Even
are
the
going to
Browns,
be
yeah.
good.
I actually have Baker Mayfield later on my list, but now I'm looking at it and I'm like, dude, he's in such a good division.
I mean, you can argue Baker and Kyler are in the same position as they've. Well, they just have in division wise. They're a good team,
Oh,
but they
okay.
have two teams better than them in their division, which kind of means that they might not be as good as people expect them to be.
Yeah.
Even if they're a good team. Like I don't know, the NFL really there's a couple teams that are rebuilding, but most teams are in a position to win now. I mean, the Dolphins, the Bengals, and the Redskins.
Panthers.
Sorry, Washington football team
Panthers
and
are
the
rebuilding.
Panthers. Yeah, Panthers. So 4.
Lions are like just awful.
Okay, yeah, that's 5.
I
Okay,
mean,
I
there's more
undervalue.
than that.
Yeah,
There's
there
more
are.
than that.
There
Yeah.
are. I don't know what I was trying to say, but
Jaguars, they suck too.
yeah, I don't know what I was trying to say with Giants, Jets. Okay, yeah, okay, I'll stop. But
But yeah,
yeah, I do think the Steelers could win. They have a really good defense, and Big Ben is a Hall of Famer. And I mean, Juju.
He's been good when Big Ben when he's with Big Ben. He's
True.
actually really good.
James Washington and Deontay Johnson showed flashes
neither of those
last
guys
year.
are awful either.
James Conner is going to pop off.
I don't know about that. They've always had a good O-line, though. They've always had a good
Exactly. They had great O-line. He's healthy. Did you see his workout videos? My man's looking like Saquon, dude. It's crazy.
Just because we're in the division, do you mind if I do my Baker one now?
Go ahead.
All right. Well, the thing with Baker is I said after this year he will either be in the MVP conversation or be talking about like getting canned in Cleveland. I think this is make or break for Baker. I don't think he's going to be allowed another year of like, he's just playing
mediocrity.
I think this year the Browns either compete offensively or he's done. That's obviously really tough to say when they have a brand new offensive. That's really tough to say for me at least because I think he will. I'd say that's a hot take, but just with the amount of scrutiny the Browns have faced recently, I don't think that the media wouldn't put that pressure on the Browns. But with Kevin Stefanski being in his first year being Baker's coach, I don't see them getting rid of him necessarily.
I think Freddie Kitchens was awful for Baker.
That's what I was going to say. Freddie Kitchens was awful last year, so that's why he got a sort of grace year. But he has a lot of talent on that offense, and they drafted an offensive lineman, which was their biggest concern. It obviously takes an entire line, but I think they have a couple good pieces there. Their offense is super stacked. Their their corners are great. They've got Myles Garrett. I mean, Olivier Vernon. I don't really see a ton of holes in this Browns team. Once again,
linebackers. Who do they have a linebacker?
They're in that same position. They're in the same position, kind of as
they have depth, but no stars.
They've got depth, but they just have so much star power to the point where I don't think they ever thought enough about chemistry when forming the team. But I really, really hope that Baker succeeds this year. I'm on Team Baker just because I think having Freddie Kitchens as the head coach.
God, that was so bad for him. That was so bad for him.
It's unfair to criticize him after last year, but they're in a tough division, so we'll see what happens.
We will indeed. I believe in Baker as well. I like Baker. I don't know what else to say. Like, people expect it. Another thing was that team last year was – the team this year for the Browns is better than last year, but they have less hype. The only reason the last year team failed is because Freddie Kitchens basically destroyed their offense. I think now, hopefully, Stefanski can give them some sort of base. They just need a base because I feel like they just keep trying to, like, build a castle with no foundation. They got to start building the foundation, get some good contracts. Myles Garrett, if Baker plays well, give him a good deal. They need to build something for the future rather than, like, let's just sign all these free agents and let's put them together and we'll win the Super Bowl. So
yeah. And one thing I would look for this year is look at their utilization of tight ends compared to years in the past, just because they obviously signed Austin Hooper and they already have Njoku and Stefanski last year. I mean, Kyle Rudolph always has been a big part of that offense.
Yeah,
so I'd be excited this year to see Baker take up some advantages that he has with guys on his tight ends.
All right. Well, we'll each do one more guy to talk about. Right now, we just kind of had a big I'll talk about Sony. Right now, Sony, I think he will succeed a lot on the Patriots for the first couple weeks. People are going to overreact a little bit, I think. Sony is a great player. He's shown that. But the Patriots are an organization that haven't let him prove that, per se. He has had like last year, he played great. But 2 years ago, he played great. Wait, no,
2 years. He was pretty bad last year, man.
2 years ago, he played great and looked like the clear starting guy. Last year, they never really – he had a couple bad games, and they stopped him. They stopped giving him the ball. They started passing it to James White 30 times a game. So I think, and now they've lost Damian Harris. They cut Lamar Miller. Sony is in a position if Bill Belichick allows him to get the ball, I think he can prove himself and show that, yeah, he's a good player and he has the ability to build off of that rookie season.
Yeah, that's fair. I would say the one criticism I have of Sony is he's pretty awful when he gets hit. Like he has no ability to stay up. I feel like
He's a downfield guy.
it feels like every time I see him get touched, he falls. Like I don't like his lack of stability. Hopefully that's something he worked on over the offseason. He's not really good going through contact. But, honestly, his first year, he didn't look bad going through contact. I don't know what the change was over the last 2 years. But last year, he just looked.
I just think
like
that he had a couple. He had no momentum going into any games. It was all just, okay, you had a bad game. All right, we're done with you. We're gonna run Rex Burkhead more than you. We're gonna run. Running with James White is such a pointless thing to do. Why wouldn't you just pat? But they did it. They kind of just left Sony in the dust, and I think Sony has something to prove. He's not just like locked up. He doesn't have a good contract or anything. He has something to prove, and he's going to prove it. And I think he will play well.
All right. The next guy I guess for moving on from that, Phillip Rivers, I just wrote him down. I've got no clue what I think. Well, I know what I think he's going to do this year. I honestly think he's going to be really good.
I do too.
He downgrades at receiver, but if you think about it, the Chargers' offensive line is not very good. At least last year it wasn't. I felt like half the games I watched him play, he'd get hit like 10 times, and he's not a dude that's very mobile. So, of course, it's hard for him to extend plays and stuff like that without a good O-line. But with the Colts having such a good O-line, I honestly think that the Colts have got a shot to be good this year. Of course, I hope the Titans are better, but, I mean, Phillip Rivers is a Pro Bowl guy.
He's a Hall of Fame guy. Phillip Rivers will make the Hall of Fame.
We'll see.
I think he should.
I mean, I think he's got to have, if he can make a run in the playoffs this year, I don't doubt him making it. But I feel like he's got to have at least one more season because the last couple, he's
kind of been in a Matthews.
He had one great year with the Chargers.
He had a couple. He had that one. Obviously,
in the last 3-4 years, he had one year.
Okay.
And then since then, it's been kind of downhill because they had all that talent on the defense, and people thought they could potentially make a run. And then since then, it's just kind of gone downhill for him. But I really think this year he's going to have a lot more time in the pocket, and he's always been solid. I don't think that the Colts are really going to struggle. I don't think they're going to miss a beat. Honestly, I think this year they're going to be a lot better than last year. They're going to compete with the Titans for and the Texans are always up there too, potentially for this division. And I guess since it's a hot take, I'll say the Colts will win the division. But I don't think that's really even that hot of a take.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit of a hot take just because the Titans, they've improved over the offseason and they just went to the AFC Championship.
I feel like an improvement at quarterback, though, is more significant than the changes the Titans made.
Yeah, but the Titans were already better than the Colts. They also – I think Darrynton Evans is going to be fantastic for the Titans late in the year because they need to give Derek a break. Yes, he's great, but you can't run him 30 times a game. I guess you can if he's superhuman, but you don't want to risk the injury. So I'd say that they run Darrynton Evans a lot. I don't know a ton about the guy, but I think with that, plus Jadeveon, they lost Logan Ryan, which is a big hit for the secondary. But the AFC South is going to be interesting to watch, minus the Jaguars.
There are a lot of interesting divisions this year, the more you think. There aren't really any divisions that are, clear-cut. I feel like in the past there kind of have been some that are just clear.
Well, there's always been the Patriots, but now that division is a little interesting.
Clear-cut divisions. Well, I think that the Bills you could potentially say are clear-cut.
Well,
who else is going to beat them? The Jets.
Maybe the rebuilding.
Patriots.
Dolphins. Patriots aren't.
You still got to beat the Patriots. You still got to beat the Patriots.
Sure.
But
you got anybody else you want to add to that?
That's it for me. I was going to mention Drew Lock, but at this point, I feel like
we did have a long discussion about
before,
that.
So
I also talked about Kyler, but we can save that for when he loses to the Titans. So
Yeah, that's such a dilemma for me because obviously I want Drew Lock to do well, but I would like the Titans to win that game.
I want it to be a 48-43 dub for the Titans. Drew
Yeah,
Lock.
that's what I'm feeling. That's what I'm feeling.
All right. Well, thank you guys for watching, and we'll go ahead and catch you next time.